Welcome back to Jacques Talk, and joining me right now is none other than Jake Crain of the Jboy Show. Jake, how you doing, man?
Jock, it's great to be on with you, brother. I appreciate you having me, and it's been a wild and crazy college football season, and excited to see how it finishes.
Well, we're going to talk about LSU and all that great stuff in a second, but first, I just want people to know about you a little bit. I think I saw you for the first time maybe at SEC Media Days this past year in Birmingham. There, you started this podcast in 2020. You've got a bit of a fascinating background. You're from Opelika, Alabama, correct?
Yep, that's it. Yep.
You played baseball at South Alabama for a couple of years, and you've coached college football. You've coached linebackers, running backs. Tell us about that.
Yeah, man, it's been an interesting journey. I mean, I grew up in a house. Kurt Crain was my father, so sports is what we did. He was All-American linebacker at Auburn, played in the NFL, coached a long time, and baseball was my better sport. I had a chance to play higher in baseball. I always loved football. Football is always my favorite sport. And South Alabama had just started a football program, and I signed there to play baseball, so it was a perfect fit for me. And a year later, it's kind of fun to see they hired my father as the linebackers coach. So I always make the joke, they followed me to college. I didn't follow them, they followed me. But no, man, I got into coaching, knew I wanted to do it, chose between baseball and football, and started out small, just volunteering and worked my way up. And it turned into a 9-year career, and was very fortunate. Coached a little bit of high school, but mainly college. Was up in Montana, coaching up there at State, and came back during the pandemic, and we got pushed back a little bit. And, the early signing period, a bunch of our kids had already signed. And I was trying to, just not waste some time, but, I'm used to working and stuff like that. And just started doing this on a whim. And it's funny, it really kind of took off without me knowing really what the hell I was doing. I mean, I was just getting behind. I'm not a technological savant by any stretch of the imagination. So, my biggest thing was when I started it, I didn't want to get political. I didn't want to, I wanted to give kind of a different view. That's why our slogan's win the water cooler, because I kind of understand, what goes on and how the sausage is made, and being able to take those complex problems, whether it be on the field, whether it be off the field in recruiting or whatever, and put them in layman's terms. And man, it was funny. I was interviewing for the DC job and had done probably about 10 episodes, maybe. There was really no structure back then, and was flying back up to Montana, sitting in the Memphis airport, and decided, hey man, call it intervention, luck, whatever. Might as well give this a shot. And, really full time, less than a year later, we had, signed with Colin Cowherd and got some other big stuff going on as well. So just a really exciting time.
That's awesome, man. And so the show has really grown. Obviously, I guess you being in coaching, you've got great connections and great sources and great insight to the game of college football, especially there in the Southeastern Conference, which is what you're focusing on, correct?
Yeah, and it's funny, it's kind of gone more national now. The more the show's grown, we have, in our live chat, everywhere from Oregon fans to Ohio State fans, and they beg us to talk about the Big Ten a little bit and the Pac-12, and we do, and it's been fun, and I like to go national. But, to me, I think where it's different, I think one of the reasons that it's grown so fast, outside of, good timing, is just, again, I think it's a little bit different, because I want our audience to be better at watching football, or to understand the game they love, more, and being able to, like I said, kind of navigate through the waters of, well, this is gap scheme, this is zone scheme, this is what they're doing defensively, this is cover 2. Why is it cover 2? Well, the corner's heels are on a cliff at 5, and he's funneling everybody inside to the safety. I would like our audience, even if it's one thing they get, the coolest part about the show to me is I'll get messages saying, man, I was watching the game and I did what you said, and I didn't watch the ball. I watched the line of scrimmage. I feel like such a smarter football watcher. I feel like I could see the future based on what was happening up front. So they love the game as much as I do, as much as you do. I was fortunate enough, to coach it and be in it and grow up in it. So I love imparting the knowledge. Now, do I know everything? No. But if I was a chef for 9 years, I think I'd have a pretty good chef podcast.
I love it. And even me being, I've been at the station for 20 years, but I'm guilty of what you're talking about. You watch the ball, you get involved.
It's what you're conditioned to do. It's what in every sport. In hockey, you watch the puck. In basketball, you watch the ball. You learn so much more about the sport when you're not watching the ball. And it's it's funny. People, it's almost like a revolution in their mind because they're so trained. And look, it's fun to watch the ball. Hell, I watch the ball most of the times, but sometimes I don't. That's how you learn.
Yeah, good stuff, man. And so the show was growing, and to people watching and listening out there, I think I'm kind of hyper and energetic when I go to games and things. I pace, I walk around before kickoff and SEC Media Day. Man, I saw you just bouncing around that hotel, up and down the halls,
Yeah.
chasing down guests at SEC Media Day. So you are a hustler, as Colin Cowherd said.
Yeah, again, and it's funny. I'm used to 24/7 working too, because recruiting never stops. Jock, you know this. Recruiting never stops. It's a 24/7 job. I don't care what Dan Mullen says. There's no recruiting season. It's always recruiting season. But yeah, man. I mean, and again, I'm competitive, like you're competitive, and I'm new to this space, and I want to set a precedent of, I want to be one of the most knowledgeable and be able to deliver and be, the Rosetta Stone, I guess, of college football. But I feel like you do it through hard work. And, I look around now and a lot of people my age, and our age, Jock, I'll say, they think everything needs to be handed to them. And, at the end of the day, you get what you earn, you are what you eat. And when they say, well, there's not a lot of guys out there working like that. Well, like Jay-Z said, less is more, man. There's plenty of us.
I love it, man. Good deal. And I'm going to say too, look, I grew up in the South Louisiana area. I think your name, Jboy, would fit perfectly over there. Man, that's Jboy. Man, who is that?
That's exactly right. Well, somebody pretended to be me at Ed Orgeron's conference when they asked him about Bebe. They literally said, I woke up the next morning and my phone exploded. I thought somebody got fired. Like, I thought somebody was fired. And they're like, dude, did you call in? All my buddies who know my voice was like, that wasn't you. But I had other people like, dude, did you call into the Ed O show and like set him up last night? And I was like, please, Ed Orgeron, do not put me in a hole down there in the bayou by Bobby Boucher's house.
Yeah, that was one of the more infamous moments of the year. Oh, just a cringe phone call. We don't encourage us. I don't endorse that phone call or whatever, but man, that was rough. That was a rough night for Coach.
That was tough. The guy tried to save him too. Next to him, he tried to help him. He tried to save him, but Edo just took it hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah, Chris Blair, voice of the Tigers. Well, Coach, let's talk about football. No, let me say something about that right there. No,
oh, no. That's when someone has to scream fire and everybody pretends to run out.
Of TJ Ribs there. So just your perspective on the LSU job. You from the outside looking in, we're in the woods, so to speak. What do you think about this LSU job and the opportunity someone's going to have here?
Well, it's an elite job. To me, it's a top 5 to 7 job in the country for, not just the reasons of being in the SEC. To me, there's a lot of superlatives that go on with the LSU job. Is there a lot of pressure? Well, hell, we're surrounded by gravity. There's pressure all the time. It's just how much do you want? When I look at this LSU job, to me, I see a state that is littered in purple and gold. This littered in purple and gold, and they love the Saints. You don't have to worry about an Oklahoma State. You don't have to worry about an Auburn. You don't have to worry about a Florida State. People aren't choosing McNeese State over LSU. They're not spurning LSU for Northwestern State and La Tech. Right. So again, being able to keep that in-state talent, we all know how rich and fertile the ground is there in Louisiana. You're right by the Panhandle too. I mean, you can go 5 directions outside of your house and find 5 stars either way. Even though I do think finding alignment in the state of Louisiana is a little bit tougher. That's where you got to be able to dip into Texas and really kind of nationalize it. But LSU is a major brand, and LSU to me is just cool. I mean, it's and I know that's a very interesting and I guess unoriginal way to put it, but I think of LSU and I think of swag. I think of the society today we live in, and seeing the purple and gold and seeing Death Valley at night and seeing the cool uniform combos and stuff like that. To me, LSU represents where college football is going, and that's an fast moving, hard hitting, have a lot of fun, playing big games. Everybody's having a good time type of place. And as a coach, if you get the people of Louisiana behind you, I mean, you might as well have a damn armada behind you. So, when I look at this LSU job, there are a lot of guys that would crawl over broken glass to be able to have an opportunity to go and lead what is a dominant program and what should be a dominant program. And what I've seen over the past 2 years, it seems like the party never ended. And guys like, they asked Nick Saban after he won the national championship a couple of years ago, what are you doing tomorrow? You know what he said? I'm going recruiting. Ed Orgeron went on a cruise or whatever. Like, it's just the difference. LSU is a place that should be respected. It's a place that should be not taken for granted. And you win because that's what's expected of you.
Yeah, Jake, there are famous stories when LSU won the national championship in 2003 with Nick Saban as the head coach. People that were trying to go to Bourbon Street and celebrate, have a good time, and Nick Saban at the hotel saying, I don't know where you think you're going, but we got a recruiting meeting in here in half an hour. We got to hit the road tomorrow, go recruiting. Just after beating out Oklahoma.
No, it's a different level because, again, it's hard to win it. Obviously, it's unbelievably hard to win it. And sometimes you catch lightning in a bottle. And I think we have to say that 2010 Auburn was lightning in a bottle. I think we have to say that 2019 LSU was a little bit of lightning in the bottle. I mean, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Jefferson. I mean, go down the list of absolute monsters. I mean, Randy Moss's kid at tight end was balling. And he wasn't even one of the main guys. So, Edwards-Helaire. I mean, you literally had an NFL offense, but being able to maintain that, being able to sustain that. But the game is always changing. It's always evolving. So you need a coach like a Nick Saban that, and I say everybody wants a Nick Saban, but a coach that is malleable. What do I mean by that? They can adjust as the times adjust. When Nick Saban said, listen, we're not beating guys 14-7 anymore. We have to bring in offenses that can score. So to me, getting the culture right at LSU, and that's who Edo, really was supposed to be. Edo's not a schematic, Jimmy Neutron. He's not a beautiful mind when it comes to putting together schematical game plans. He's supposed to be the culture guy. He's supposed to be the motivator, that it's what you're doing when nobody's watching. I'll lead by my example, which he didn't do. To me, if you're going to be the CEO style coach that's going to worry about culture all the time, then be the CEO style coach that worries about culture all the time.
Yeah, Jake, when he won all the National Coach of the Year awards in 2019, he made it clear, look, if I don't have Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Joe Brady, Steve Ensminger, I'm not up there winning Coach of the Year awards. And he made it clear then, these are the three things I do well. I motivate, I'm going to coach defensive line, and I'm going to recruit. Those are the three things I'm going to do. And what he always sold and what was supposed to be the Ed Orgeron model, a Dave Aranda on defense, a Joe Brady / Steve Ensminger on offense, there's the model. But when the assistant coaches dropped off, Ed Orgeron dropped off too, and we see where we are right now. So
yeah, it's about the players and who you hire. I mean, I've seen guys that are unbelievable play callers with average players look like average play callers. I've seen unbelievable players with an average play caller make a coach look like an unbelievable play caller. So again, to use I guess an unoriginal phrase, it just depends on what you put in the gumbo. When you look at LSU, my thing with LSU and Ed Orgeron is I feel like he took it for granted. Even winning it, I feel like he took it for granted. You always tell the players, don't listen to your press clippings. Don't worry about that. It's rat poison. Well, man, not only did you take the rat poison, you swallowed more of it than the guy off Dumb and Dumber after he eats the peppers.
Block out the noise, Jake. That was supposed to be, that was the trademark phrase at LSU.
Yeah.
Block out the noise.
Yeah, it's hard to block out the noise when I'm seeing you sitting on Cancun Beach with a bunch of co-eds.
Well, the off the field stuff certainly came to light. It appeared, and once you got boat raced by UCLA in the season opener, there were signs that this was gonna head south. I kind of threw out 2020. Look, 2020 was what it was. This was going to be more of an indicator of where LSU was heading, and here we are. As I'm talking to you, they're 4-5 overall, and their best effort of the year is a loss to Alabama last week. So I kind of caught some of your broadcasts yesterday. Fascinating game, in my opinion, that's going to go down this weekend in Oxford, right? So Ole Miss is going to host Texas A&M. Two head coaches that have certainly been brought up in the LSU circles. Lane Kiffin going up against Jimbo Fisher. Jimbo Fisher getting a lot of run, a lot of talk right now. Lane Kiffin, not so much for the LSU job. Just some thoughts on those two guys.
Yeah, well, looking at Lane, obviously he's the guy that's part of the new wave, social media monster. I talked about this yesterday because, I asked our audience and opined on it for the next 5 years. Would you take Jimbo Fisher or would you take Lane Kiffin? And to me, it was Jimbo Fisher because, again, Lane, I've got a ton of respect for Lane. If you watch the show, you know that. But to me, Lane can build you a great offense with a lot of cachet and pub. Jimbo Fisher can build you a great program with a little bit of flash, but a lot of grit. I think he's more of a program builder offensively. His defense complements the defense a lot more than what Lane does offensively. You're able to play complementary football a lot better that way. It's not just about how many points you score. It's about how many points you score and how many points you give up. So, when I'm looking at the two coaches, Jimbo's obviously the elder of the two. I do, while I think Lane, it would be a good fit for LSU, and I don't think Jimbo's going there. Part of me thinks that LSU may need the father figure type. LSU may need somebody that's not as out there. But again, it's 2021. Lane Kiffin's name is really hot. We know that the matchup with A&M this weekend, to me, when I look at it, is fascinating, kind of like Georgia and Tennessee, because you really have two different methodologies that are clashing together. But I tell you what, Jock, at night in Oxford, game day's going. Lane's been reading the spell book all week. At some point, they always pull one. Lane does this where they come out and drop a 50-piece on somebody. And if you look at A&M defensively, their front seven is a nightmare. The secondary, however, isn't nearly as solid or buttoned up as they are up front. But if I'm Ole Miss, the quick game and modified runs, because Ole Miss ain't going to be able to run the ball, in my opinion, effectively against A&M, and the freak shows they have on that defensive line. They actually look like old LSU teams, the ones I remember up front, where you have cats from the 3 tech out to the 5, back to the shade that'll rip your guts out and show them to you. So, when I look at this game, I think you'll see a lot of quick. I think Corral's going to get the ball out quick. I wonder how much they're going to run him. And then can Ole Miss stop A&M's run game? Because Calzada's beat up. I mean, he's basically Mr. Potato Head out there. They're having to take him back in the tent, screw his arm back in, screw his ankle back in. I just waiting for him to grow a mustache and watch his nose fall off. But it's a pretty interesting matchup.
This guy here, right? He's running circles around my brain, man. You were snappy. That coffee you drank a while ago, that just enhanced.
Oh, it's not coffee. No, I'm just kidding. That's a joke. It's 100% coffee.
Yeah, Jimbo Fisher got about a decade on Lane Kiffin in terms of age, and Jimbo, very accomplished offensive coordinator at LSU, won the national title in 2003, a national championship at Florida State. Made the playoff again at Florida State, got boat raced. I think that was Oregon that whipped them. I think that was at the Rose Bowl, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so.
A more calming presence, like you said, and his teams are playing defense at Texas A&M as well. And you just brought something up, a fascinating discussion to me. I always hear this thing, Jake. Well, I don't give him that much credit for the national title because he had such and such as a player, I'm like, isn't that the idea? Get the best players?
I always laugh to, like, when people are like, oh, well, he got lucky and won the national championship. So, you got to play 14 games, right? Like and the goal is to get the best players. You happen to find the most dominant player. How would I punish you? But see, then on the other side, these coaches that this happens to, and I know you know this, Jock, their egos, which they have to have. You have to have an ego to be in this profession. They want to prove it that they can do it twice. Like, they want to show you that it wasn't just the player. It's like the people who now say that Bill Belichick is the system coach, that since Tom Brady left. It's, it's hard to do. It's really hard to do in today's game. But the goal is to get the best players. And if you find the Superman of the year, whether it be Cam Newton, whether it be Joe Burrow, we have other examples as well, good for you. But a lot of these guys want to sustain it. But no, it is a funny argument. You're going to punish me for winning the national championship. I don't get it. It's like Ricky Bobby said on Talladega Nights, man. Like, I don't know what to do with my hands.
Yeah, exactly. If Joe Burrow was at Texas A&M winning a national title with Jimbo, all the LSU fans would be saying, "Well, why didn't you recruit that guy?" Why
that's exactly right.
So that's kind of the way that goes. And so you said Jimbo Fisher, you don't think he would come to LSU. I think some LSU fans already have Jimbo fatigue, even though he's never been the head coach here because he's come around so often. And I think they raised his salary there very high. $9 million he's going to make next year, something ridiculous. So he's improved the program for sure. But does he want to get out of Texas, get away from the Longhorns, and think he can win a title at LSU, where hopefully Nick Saban in the next 2 or 3 years says, "I've had enough"?
Yeah, don't hold your breath on that. With Jimbo, I would, very rarely in this game am I shocked. if Jimbo left A&M to LSU, I would legitimately be shocked because I know for a fact he's very comfortable out there. It's funny, him and my father coached together at Auburn. My grandmother bought a car off of him a long time ago, so I've known Jimbo basically my whole life. And he is he's a country boy. He wants to go hunt. He wants to go fish. He's got more ranches than a Hidden Valley factory out there. I just don't see him leaving. The trajectory of the program over the next 5 years, in my opinion, there's no telling where the ceiling can be. I mean, they got more resources than Saudi Arabia, man.
Man, good stuff. All right, so Jimbo Fisher, Lane Kiffin, they go head to head. Mel Tucker has gotten a lot of run, Jake, lately being brought up. Michigan State, as I'm speaking to you, is 8-1. They're number 7 in the college football playoff rankings. They finish out the year with Maryland, a trip to Ohio State. They host Penn State. And they don't necessarily have to win all those games, but I think it's how it looks, right? I mean, how do you run a program? Can you build a program? Are you a good, consistent leader for young men? But Mel Tucker, man, this is just his 3rd year being a head coach. I don't know if he has enough hay in the barn to make that move for LSU, or if you don't make the move, you're regretting it later when Mel Tucker becomes a star. What do you think about him?
Yeah, if you look at Mel Tucker's resume, I mean, going back to Georgia and Bama and everywhere he's been, I mean, to me, I think he's ready. He's got the blueprint from everybody. You got it from, Lord Saban over there in Tuscaloosa. He showed them how to use the dark arts. But I always think it's funny, too, when coaches are like in the hunt during the season and they're like 7-0 and they lose the game and everybody's like, no, we don't want him. It's like, no, we don't want him. He just lost one game. We don't want him. He's not as good as we thought. It's like, you got to look at it in aggregate. Like, it's not how it works. Like, you go 11-1 or 11-2 or even 9-3 at a place like Michigan State with the way it was kind of going downhill. Like, that's a good look. To me, I think Mel Tucker, at the end of the day, is just a fantastic, not only from a recruiting standpoint, but from a toughness standpoint, from a motivation standpoint. I think he's a more consistent, as crazy as this sounds, Ed Orgeron from a motivation standpoint. I think he's a more disciplined Ed Orgeron. I think he's everything that people wanted Ed Orgeron to be, minus the accent, but you can sustain that, like I said. Because listen, a one-night stand is great. That's awesome. But you get married to the person you love, that's forever, Job.
Well, I could definitely use that personal advice. I appreciate that, Jake Crain, here on the show today.
Hey, man, dual threat for sure.
Wow, where do I go from there? All right, so yeah, they finish out the year with those games, and Mel Tucker coached here at LSU way back when, 1 year with Nick Saban. It was funny, Jake. I think Nick Saban's first 3 years on the job, he might have lost like 7 or 10 assistant coaches. I mean, they were leaving every year. I can't work with this guy. He's driving me crazy, And
yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We have a guy named Tyler Siskey who was basically Saban's right-hand man, director of player personnel at Bama. We get him on, a decent amount on Fridays, and he tells me stories. Some of them I can share, some of them I can't. But at the end of the day, Nick Saban runs about as tight as a ship as you're going to see. The expectation is at a very high level, but as Siskey said, so is the salary. So you make the choice.
Yeah, and Nick Saban, back to a point you made a while ago, I think there was some interview I saw with him where he said something along the lines of, people make a big deal about my motivational tactics and my program building and all. It ain't that hard. I get the best players, right? I mean, that was what it kind of comes down to.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Listen, if I'm running a business and I have to hire a bunch of salesmen, I want to hire the best salesman possible and let them go sell it. Now, we'll have a structure, but I think he does a really good job of when they recruit people, they take on the recruit's personality. When that recruit signs and comes up there, that recruit takes on the team's personality. They've got that down to a T. That's how you turn it into a machine. And yeah, if you have the best players the team with the best players that play the most discipline the longest win. And that's what Nick Saban has done. He doesn't have just have a monopoly on the players. He has a monopoly on the culture. He has a monopoly on the development. He has a monopoly on them truly believing that if I go to Alabama as a business decision, Coach Saban, down the line, I can change my socioeconomic status because look at all the examples. All Nick Saban has to do is walk in a room, hand a spreadsheet, sit down, and shut up. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. And recruiting has changed. You know this. It's not that, oh, well, my dad went here or I'm from here, so I'm going here. It's, well, I think I'm going to the NFL. My parents think I'm going to the NFL. What's the easiest way for me to get to the NFL? And that's going to what is the next step down from the NFL. You have the AFC, the NFC, and the SEC, and the best team just happens to be Alabama.
Well, Jake, I think that's where LSU needs to strike a balance between, if you come to school here, we'll get you to the NFL. But when you get here, I don't need you tapping out to go to the NFL. I would like you to give me your best while you're here. And I'm not, there's guys that have gotten hurt and this and that. Or some people say,
no, I know what you're saying. Listen, look, my thing was always this. There's a difference between being hurt and injured, number one. And I just never grew up when I was playing. I don't know how. And there's certain circumstances where I guess you could see it. A bowl game that's not in the playoff. You're a guy that came from nothing. You got 4 or 5 brothers and sisters, got a chance to make millions of dollars. I get that. But I just don't know how you look your teammates in the eye halfway through the season and say, nah, guys, I'm good. To me, that's a systemic problem. That's a terminal problem, because the best teams in the world aren't policed by the coaches. They're policed by the players.
Yeah, good call. 2019. I mean, Joe Burrow and those guys, the players took great ownership of that team. And
that's what I'm saying. You got a problem. That's why they make the locker room. We'll shut the door and we'll figure it out one way or the other.
Yeah. And the transfer portal too. I know I'm just all over the place today, but has this been good for college football? I'm not sure.
Well, I see everybody was freaking out about NIL. I was freaking out about the opportunity to transfer within your own conference without a penalty. Like, you think LeBron tampered in the NBA? There's no telling what's going on right now. And you could sit here and say, man, all right, we're beating South Carolina by 25. But, man, I like their starting corner. Hey, let somebody go whisper in his ear, hey, you want to come over and play at Georgia next year and win a national championship? This is going to cause a ton of problems. Not the transfer portal being able to transfer other places outside of your conference, but if you're letting people transfer not only inter-conference, but inter-division, it's about to get, to quote Red Bayou from The Water Boy, it's about to get awfully physical around here.
Will Wade, the LSU basketball coach, who's been able to dance around the landmines and is still there right now with a very good team. I think he put it best. He said, if you try to build a program, you're going to get left in the dust. We are building a team on a year-to-year basis these days. And so.
Yeah, well, again, basketball, I think you can do that. You only got 5 on the court and you sign 2 guys, you can win the whole thing. It's like baseball. You give me a guy throwing 100 miles per hour in college, I'm going to win a lot of games with them. I mean, you give me a 7-footer, you give me a Chet Holmgren, you can win a lot of games with a guy like that. But Will Wade, man, this guy's got more lives than a cat. I mean, they got him on tape. They got you on tape. They had Gotti on tape. They had all these other guys on tape. Will Wade just sneaking around it.
You know how that goes, man. I mean, when he's your coach, but when he's someone else's coach,
he's part of the sting. He's in on it. He's part of it.
All right. Lincoln Riley, the young offensive coach, has really come in vogue in recent years with Kingsbury and McVay, and Lincoln Riley, 38 years old, 54-9 at Oklahoma, 3 playoff appearances. He's lost to an SEC team every time he's been in the playoffs. Would he doesn't have the pressure at Oklahoma he would have at LSU, right? Would there be any scenario that Lincoln Riley, he's coming to the SEC anyway if he stays at Oklahoma, would he want to come to LSU for any reason?
I don't see why. I don't see it, especially now that you're coming to the SEC and Oklahoma State isn't, and you've always been able to really out-recruit Oklahoma State. I just don't see the merit in it. You're comfortable at Oklahoma. They love you. You're having success there. You always pull a Notre Dame when you get to the playoff, but that's neither here nor there. But now I just don't see it, Chuck. I don't see the reason why. I don't understand why. I guess, to me, there's more cachet at LSU than there is at Oklahoma. But he's in such a good spot there. And that's kind of, it's kind of become his gig.
Yeah. I guess Scott Woodward, Jake, has been known for the big splash hire, the big fish, since he's been at LSU. Of course, women's basketball a lot different, but he got Kim Mulkey to leave Baylor to come to LSU. Does he throw enough money at Lincoln Riley to make the big splash? I don't know, but
I think look, Scott's not afraid to whip out the wallet and pay for dinner, if you know what I'm saying. So Look, I would never put anything past him. I would just, I'd be shocked if it was Lincoln. I'd be shocked if it was Jimbo. To me, man, I still feel Lane Kiffin, man. I'm just telling you.
You feeling
Smells
Lane
funny.
Kiffin?
Smells funny.
Okay. I after Ogeron, where Scott Woodward had to call him into the principal's office, I'm sure more than once. With Lane, I guess Lane's matured, and I like the fact he kind of owned that popcorn comment this year, made fun of himself, after the fact with the Alabama thing and whatnot. But I'm just curious if there's still that kind of, is he mature enough for a job like LSU?
And that's what I was talking about earlier. I'm saying what I think is going to happen, not what the best fit is, but I do think they need somewhat of a father figure. But again, Lane, he does have some antics on the field, the popcorn thing, this, that, and the other, but he's really not done anything off the field. I feel like we think Lane Kiffin is like this party animal that just leaves practice and goes straight to the bars with like the frats or whatever. He really hasn't done anything like that off the field. I promise you, I've been in the world. There's coaches that do a lot worse than what Lane Kiffin does. I promise you that.
Good deal. All right. Look, a few more moments here with you. Dabo Swinney. No way.
No, I mean, again, like I said, that man's got a family. I mean, he's got a monopoly over there at Clemson. I mean, why you don't want to be the guy like you're talking about Dabo to LSU. Yeah.
I don't know if his personality.
I tell you this, Jock. I think, and people will think I'm nuts for this because he played at Bama. I think there's a whole hell of a lot better chance of Dabo going to LSU than it is Bama when Saban leaves. I promise you that, because you never want to be the guy that replaces the guy. You want to be the guy that replaces the guy that replaced the guy. And I think that's what, Dabo, when you look at Alabama, but that's a weird fit to me. I don't know. That just seems like, Dabo, they don't do the JUCO thing over there. And it's just it's a different lifestyle over there at Clemson. It's kind of like their own, not a cult, but it's kind of like their own little world over there. They slide down slides, and, A&M, they scream into the night. Like, I'm always worried about what the animals think out there in College Station a couple Saturdays, every month. But, I don't know. It's just an interesting situation. I'd be surprised.
I don't think his personality and some of his quirkiness would fit in Baton Rouge. I don't.
Look, he's just a different type cat. I just don't think it's a good fit at LSU.
All right, and I agree with you. God bless the guy that follows Nick Saban at Alabama, who goes 10-2, and those people. Just not. Well,
I just think if he's gonna retire, then like 2 weeks later, they're gonna, it's gonna be like Nick Saban with a mustache. I'm like, that's his brother Rick Saban that we just hired.
Here's another name for you. I brought it up out of left field. I just kind of wonder if he's beneath the surface. Mario Cristobal at Oregon. He coached at Alabama. Big background in offensive lineman. Got Cam Robinson to go to Alabama. LSU's Achilles heel for years has been the offensive line. Kind of a CEO type, I'm told, like Ogeron. Not a mind on either side of the ball, but is winning big at Oregon. And I'm just curious if he's the guy that no one's talking about.
Man, if he goes to LSU, you better lock the doors. I mean, this kid, this is the guy Bama wants. This is the guy Bama wants after Saban. I can promise you that. Down to my last dollar, I can promise you that. Mario is a monster. He has totally changed the way that Oregon plays. Look how much more physical Oregon is now up front. And you let him go to a place like LSU, he's one of the best recruiters in the country. You think Ed O could motivate? Damn Cristobal could motivate a washer to dry. I mean, that's the type guy he is. He recruits at a really high level. He's very disciplined. He's very structure oriented. That would be, in my opinion, the perfect hire for LSU. That'd be the grand slam. That would be the best hire they could possibly make, and they'd be back really quickly, very quickly, and they'd be pissed off.
Jake, I'm just wondering, kind of like Jay Johnson, who became LSU's baseball coach. All the talk was about these 3 guys, these 4 guys, but the real guy was over here. I'm just wondering if Cristobal is the guy that no one's talking about that could be the guy.
Well, it's like they say, I'm trying to remember the movie. It's like, what's the greatest trick the devil ever pulled? Not convincing you he wasn't there. So when I look at, it's kind of like the old, how do you make the elephant disappear? You make people look to the other end of the stage for a second. Look, that happens all the time. It happens all the time. There's no time. They're probably meeting in like Sun Valley, Idaho to discuss this, like places that there's nobody else there except crickets and lizards. I mean, that's somewhere in the middle of nowhere, some sweat lodge in Arizona that nobody has access to. So who knows at the end of the day? I will tell you this. Typically the first guy you hear never gets it.
Yeah. And it's funny. It's plane tracking season too, Jake. I mean,
yeah, that always works. You might as well track Santa Claus.
You are outstanding. I'm going to say that right now. All right. So before I let you go, and then there's the second tier, so to speak. Look, I went to UL Lafayette. I am not going to say one negative thing about Billy Napier. That guy's a rising star, doing an amazing job with them. But it seems like he's kind of maybe fifth on the list or something like that.
See, I don't get why. I get maybe, it doesn't look good to hire the guy from Lafayette, but you either want to win or you don't. Like I've never understood the politics of, like, well, he coaches at UAB, so we can't hire him at Auburn. How about you go find the best fit? And if he just so happens to be right down the street, great. We'll save a lot of money on gas. I don't understand that line of thinking. So like, you're telling me if you really sat down, the whole cabal at LSU sat down and like, all right, Billy Napier is the guy. All right, but we can't hire him. And we're like, why? It's because he coaches at Lafayette. What? That makes no sense. That just means we can get him here quicker. That means he knows the high school coaches. That means he knows his favorite food in restaurants. That means he knows the community somewhat. It's so ass backwards to me. I don't know if I can cuss on your job, but it's so backwards to me. I don't understand it. Like I don't get it. I would love for the best fit to be right down the street. I would have loved for my future wife to have been right next door to me. That'd have made it a whole hell of a lot easier. Like, I don't understand it.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people that say, oh, that's stupid to say we won't hire the coach of the Cajuns if it's the best guy. But there is that element of snootiness too about we don't hire the coach of the Raging Cajuns. We're LSU. So.
Then you can never complain. You should never be able to complain about anything at all, ever.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate it. You've been more than entertaining. I'm going to have to write down some more one-liners because you really dominated in that regard today. You were bang,
Look,
bang, bang.
It's a disorder. It's a blessing and a curse.
So we'll tell people about your show. Where can they catch you? And really in the era, I guess you would call it non-traditional. You and I grew up on listening to the radio and sports talk, maybe to an extent, and that's still great. That's still out there. But now,
what's radio?
Let's see.
I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
What's the old Family Guy bit? Dinner and the baby in the morning.
That's exactly right. Yeah, we're not having fireside chats with FTR anymore either.
So where can people find you, man?
Yeah, man, we're live on YouTube every weekday from 2 to 3 Central, 3 to 4 Eastern. At least that's what they told me. You can find us on the Volume YouTube channel. It's really easy to find. It's got a red V with the black background. No, it's not Verizon, I promise you. Like I said, we go live 2 to 3 Central every day. We're on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We drop the audio right after that. And yeah, man, we're chopping it up. We got Jalen Wademeyer on today, tight end out of A&M. We got Jamari Sawyer, offensive lineman from Georgia, giving our keys to victory this week, a little weekend preview going on each side of the ball in each one of the big games, including some of the matchups that we mentioned. So yeah, if you want to dig into the nitty gritty, and it's live, so we take questions and donations and read comments as well. And sometimes my brother dresses up like the Dark Emperor from Star Wars to make his picks. We've been pretty hot this year, Jock. Been pretty hot. 165 and 107 right now. I'm just waiting for the Men in Black to show up and start asking questions.
Emperor Palpatine is doing a good job picking games.
He is. Well, it's Blaine Patine. It's his brother, but we got this big conflict right now because the MAC declared war on us Tuesday night, and we had to clap them back on Wednesday, and we did. So there was a disturbance in the force. Seems it was the MAC, but it's been fixed. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Do it.
That's what I said. Look, I'm telling you, it is the funniest thing ever. He literally puts the cloak on, like and there's like a shadow over. You just got to see it. It's hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious. At least it is to me, and it's the Jboy Show. So, it is what it is.
Yeah. Have I ever told you the tale, Jake, of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
I have not heard, but I feel like this is like a Mandalorian spinoff.
Episode 3, Star Wars. So thanks so much, man. Appreciate it. And we'll definitely do this again.
All right, Jock. Thanks, buddy. Be good.